Hello, everybody, and welcome to Without Having Kicked a Ball. With a bit of a different host today. It's me, Sam. But yes, we thought we'd have a change around. But to start the show, I'd like to introduce our guest. Seems a bit strange introducing him as a guest, but I will do. Mr. TubeMix himself.
Hello there, everybody. How are you?
Hello, and then we have football knowledge himself, Mr. Jordan Erlen.
Hello, bonjour, how are you doing?
And football's funniest man, because he's still not recovered from his hamstring injury that he sustained just before COVID. It's Mr. Ben Carney. Hello.
Hello, Sam. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, all good.
Good stuff.
Well, we like a good laugh and a joke on this show, and we have, some heated debates and some great chat. But we have to start the show tonight on a sad note that former England and Aston Villa and Man City manager Sven Goran-Eriksson has sadly passed away at the start of the week at the age of 76. Sven had a battle with pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately he lost his battle at the start of the week. And we'd like to pay tribute to Sven because he was loved by everybody. I think who met him. He had an impact. He was charismatic. He was a funny man, and he certainly did his best for England, even though we didn't achieve probably as much as we should have done with our golden generation. But he had a lot to contend with. And yeah, he managed England from 2001 to 2006, reaching the quarterfinals of Euro 2004 and the World Cup of 2006. And I'd just like to start by asking the lads to share some of their memories of not one of England's most successful managers, but maybe their most popular manager. Yeah, so take it away, lads.
Go on, Jude.
Yeah, okay, I will start. I will say that Sven Goran-Eriksson and Sven's England does hold a special place in my heart, purely because that was the first England game I think I'd ever watched. I remember me and my brother in the living room. My younger brother had only just been born, and we sat and watched England versus Ecuador, which I think was World Cup 2006.
It was. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was actually the only knockout game we won from 2006 to Gareth Southgate taking over in Russia 2018. But
if I remember rightly, and you probably won't be able to answer this one because this is part of my weird football knowledge history brain. I think David Beckham free kick 1-0.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Could have been. I know he scored that one to take us to the 2002 World Cup against Greece, but
yeah, so that's obviously before our time. But that's what I remember. And yeah, Sven, look, I don't blame him or the players really for the golden generation not doing very well. I think that you listen to those ex-players and they talk a lot about how, it came from the manager and the culture of the league and things like that. But look, the one thing that stands out to me and the one thing that I want to highlight First of all, is that match being the first game I ever watched of football, really. And I, at the time, wasn't a football fan, but I remember, like, absolutely going around the room when David Beckham scored. Yeah, it's just amazing what football can do to you. And, the outpouring of support from ex-players, whether it's Neville, Cole, Beckham obviously went to see him, Stevie G. I really like the one thing that Paul Scholes said, where he said, "I wish that I would have played better for you." You know, he had that thing on Channel 4 where they were talking about, ex-players, and they were like, hope you're well, boss. Hope everything goes well with your recovery. Come and see you soon. Blah blah blah. Not really anything specific. And Paul Scholes was the only one to really say, "Look, the golden generation didn't do well enough for you, and I wish that I played better for you as a person, and for us as a team, and me as a player." I just think that any story you hear, whether it's whether it's Crouchy on the Peter Crouch podcast or other players, always Sven just seems like a great guy, and we obviously know all of his different media controversies, and it's a big miss for world football, because he was our generation's introduction to England as well, by the way.
Yes.
And even, sorry to cut off, Ben, I'll come to you in a sec, but just to follow up on that, even with the controversies that he faced in the media, I think it's important to remember that nobody had a bad word to say about him, ever. I never remember seeing anything. Yeah, there were controversies, but he was a well-liked man, who was a very charming man. He actually reminds me a little bit of Claudio Ranieri, in terms of that kind of cheeky chappy kind of person. I also think with the media stuff, it's important to note that our media are probably the worst in the world at, putting people down. The media love to get on somebody's back. They love a story. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to hand you over to Ben, who I think wants to do his tribute.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to add, a lot has already been said, but I'd just like to add, he gave people like Rooney his England debut, and along with Peter Crouch, and as Jordan said, the outpouring of love shows what kind of man he was. And obviously, before Gareth's success, I think the biggest compliment I could give Sven is that he made the country believe, and he galvanized the country. Okay, we still underachieved, but he still made us believe, and he had very good man management skills, which I think with a squad like the Golden Generation is very underrated to have. And obviously Rooney described him as a special man, and I think everyone sort of shares that same opinion, really.
Yeah. Very, very touching tributes there. For me, like Jordan's just mentioned, the Ecuador game, which was a round of 16 match, I think, in the 2006 World Cup, that we then progressed to the quarterfinals. But I remember, the thing I remember about that World Cup was, and it was the same, two things stick in my head. only flashes, but Zidane's headbutt in the final, and that being his last game he ever played, and when Ronaldo got Rooney sent off, you know, and that they're just two moments. Like the lads were saying, we were all very young at the time and can't remember lots, but yeah, I think Sven did his best. He from what I've seen of him later, you know, he spoke very passionately about England. He spoke of the troubles that the lads had getting on. And I think that held us back more than anything tactically. But I think he represented England well. You know, it's very easy, and you get a lot of people saying that the England manager, you know, should be an Englishman, and people who, you know, are entitled to that opinion. But I almost feel like Sven was our adopted son, as in he was somebody that England, everybody in England always likes, respects. Again, you see all the well wishes, not just from footballers, but from everybody, you know, from the public in England especially. You know, and there's a real gratitude, and I think he's well liked. It's not. I imagine it's not easy to come over as a foreign manager and have to try and win over a country. It's hard enough to win over your club, let alone country. But but he seemed to do that, and yeah, the results weren't what we hoped. But he was probably what we hoped in a manager, you know, in terms of his likability, his charm, his charismatic nature. And I'd just like to say, you know, rest in peace, Sven, and you know, we're gonna miss you, and football's gonna miss you, but you'll live on. And as they say in Liverpool, you'll never walk alone. Yeah, we'll always hold a special place in our hearts. So thank you.
Moving, very moving. Right then, shall we get down to business? Do you want to pass over to the main man with the plan?
Yeah, so I will.
Then, kick things into gear.
The main man with the plan. You're a poet and you didn't know it.
So yeah. Just I think what Sven would want us to do. This is a football show. So we're going to talk football, and I think we're doing a transfer show Friday for the last hour. But we're going to talk a bit about the Premier League and a bit about the EFL as well. But to take you through that, all of that and more is the one and only, and there really is one and only of him, TubeMix.
Thank you very much, Sam, for that masterful tribute. You see, he's studying acting, and if it was me, you'd be given an Oscar for that. So thank you very much, Sam. Right. I think we better start with the Premier League. So where do we want to start?
Early kickoff.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's only right.
Or do we have to?
Oh, I can't wait for this.
So, of course, it was Manchester United 2, Brighton 1.
Wait, can I
I wish it was, Will. I wish it was.
Can I do my usual as the non-United fan and just get my bit out of the way?
Can you just get the score? What was the score, TubeMix?
It was Brighton 2, Manchester United 1, it was.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. Right,
normal service has been resumed.
So let me just add to that and say, 2-1 at the Amex on Saturday afternoon. a Danny Welbeck opener, the scourge of Man United, strikes
We
again.
love him. He's one of
Uh,
our own.
Yeah, you know, he's one of them, isn't he? He's very serviceable for the level that he's at, and I think good striker, always has been, just not exactly. I don't know, just not worked for him. Amad Diallo scoring the equaliser for Man United. Absolutely love to see it because of everything that's happened with his personal life recently. His stepmom, which he considered as more of a mum to him, passed away. So for him to get the equaliser
Wonderful.
is really, really excellent.
Yeah.
And then João Pedro in the 95th minute, Man United absolutely going to sleep
Where
and
was
allowing
the left side of our defence?
Well, this is why I'm just gonna give my baseline thoughts before I let you guys go at it because I cannot wait to see what you guys are gonna say to each other. And I'm just gonna say I think again, Fabian Hertzler and this Brighton side are fantastic. We've said it, if I go through some of the things that I want to say, I'll have said the same thing 3 weeks in a row. So I'm going to try not to do that, but I think it all just works so well. And they were brilliant again. Again, I do think it would be unfair of me to say United were absolutely terrible because it's not like they didn't have chances. They were poor, as they frequently are under the current manager. And there were moments where you think, oh my God. And I think that sort of both goals could have been stopped, which is kind of harsh for the first one, but I do think that there's a bit of a kind of a breakdown there. And I definitely think, obviously, the second one, ball comes into João Pedro. There's about eight United players all closing down the one man delivering the ball, and 3 players ready to tap it in for Brighton at the back stick. So even if João Pedro misses, you've got 2 players either side of him that are in position to score. United were wasteful in parts, sloppy in midfield, and obviously the Rashford goal offside.
You mean the Garnacho goal?
Yes, sorry, Rashford offside for the Garnacho goal. That's right, isn't it?
No, it was.
No. You're getting me confused. Rashford was offside and got it scored first, yeah?
Yeah, Rashford was offside in the first
Oh,
half.
for that one, yeah.
And then Garnacho offside in the... No, Xerxes offside in the second half.
So obviously the Rashford one is marginal, but he is offside. And then the Xerxes one, I don't know why so many people were kind of making a fuss of it as it went in. It's so obvious that it hits the knee of Xerxes that it's never a goal in any situation. But yeah, Brighton continue. United, as I'd kind of said that they weren't the best against Fulham, and maybe Fulham should have got something out of that game. It was a scenario where a better team came up against United and United came unstuck. But again, I'm going to say this for the sake of fairness. I don't think United this season are anywhere near as bad as they have been, despite how poor they were. So that's my 2 pennies.
I'd just like to pick up there, George, because obviously, as you know, I support United. So does Sam. So it'd be interesting to see what he thinks in a second. But the way I saw Saturday, and everyone sees things differently, particularly in the first half, I don't think we were that bad. And I think it could have gone either way. As you said, we were wasteful, but there were glimpses in the game where you really could see what we were trying to do. Now, Brighton were obviously very good, as we know, but The thing I didn't understand before I get onto that, actually, I'd just like to point out, and I said this the other week, I think last week, was about Mason Mount's importance with the press. I thought in the first half he was our best player and very, very unlucky to get hooked. Now, it must have been an injury because, as I said, everything good was coming through Mount. Second half, we obviously were unlucky to get the Xerxes offside, even though it was. Those are the rules. Now, I've always backed Ten Hag. I know he divides opinion, but on Saturday, that loss was on him, in my opinion. I know he didn't have any control over the Xerxes offside and the United players going to sleep, but what he did have control over was his substitutions. Now, I've mentioned Mount. He also took Bruno Fernandes off. Now, I know he was having a poor game for his standards, but when you're chasing a winner, which we were, Bruno is a player that can come up with a moment of magic. So that baffled me taking Bruno off. It really did. I don't know what your thoughts are, Sam, but tell me.
Well, to be honest, I'm more side with, you've both made very good points. So I was watching the game not expecting a lot, to be honest, which sort of shows you where Man United have come to. It's the first game I've watched us play this season. I saw the Fulham highlights, but I didn't watch the game. So it's the first time I've sat down and watched us properly this season. And I didn't watch the Community Shield either because I was away. So again, like I said, it's the first time I've seen us. I'm going to start by saying that's one of the best first halves, it's one of the best first halves in the league I've seen us play under Ten Hag. I really do think that. And that's not saying a lot, I know, because we should be doing much better. But I thought our press was good. I thought we hassled Brighton. Brighton were giving the ball away very sloppily. And I thought throughout the game, actually, I don't get me wrong, I like this Hurtsler, and I think if they can win not playing at their best, and they're putting their chances away, which Brighton always used to struggle, play great football, and then wouldn't be able to put their chances away. I actually thought they were just okay. They weren't spectacular, which shows you again second half we collapsed. But United had a style of play. I saw what we were trying to do. And pretty much every time I saw United last season, other than barring the cup final, I was like, what are we doing? Are we a pressing team? Are we a sitting back team? Are we a possession team? Are we a counter-attacking team? I didn't know what we were. And the one thing that really pleased me throughout the whole game, actually, even when we were under pressure, was that that emptying of midfield, which at last season was like, if the opposition were on the ball, Casemiro and not so much Mainu, but Casemiro and McTominay or whoever was in the midfield with Fernandes or we off the ball, it was like the parting of the waves and the back four would be left exposed. I didn't actually really see that once on Saturday. So for me, that's a real plus because that was a real problem last season. We actually looked like we got legs in midfield. And that's helped by Mainu. I think it's also helped Casemiro, Manu now being there consistently because he doesn't have to worry about running back as much, and he can just focus on positioning himself. And I did think I think Brighton are a brilliant football club, but I did think they flattered to deceive a little bit. I thought they were quite poor in that first half, and we were very good. But as Ben said, you know, they took Mount off. I didn't understand that. Any time last season, I would have said get him off the pitch because he did nothing. But like his running and willingness was fantastic. And we looked really balanced. So why upside down head? Just so you know, I call Ten Hag upside down head. Why upside down head? Took him off. Just shows why he's upside down head, I guess. But and then like Ben said, to take Bruno off. To be fair, both teams were attacking at the end. I think the Xerxes goal, I agree with George, like offside is offside. It's not like it was even close or, he touched the ball and that's the end of it. And I was gutted at the end, but the defense terrible. You're always told to stop the ball at source, and if you can't do that, where's the danger? Well, the danger was at the far post, not just João Pedro, but like we said, 2 or 3 others that could have tapped in. So if you can't stop the cross or the cutback, fair enough. Go then to where the danger is, and the danger is the back six, and nobody went. It's the kind of thing you'd see in Sunday League. But Ten Hag can't really legislate for that. You players have got to look at themselves. But overall, once the disappointment had died down, I came away quite positive, which again, people will say just shows how far United have fallen, losing 2-1 at the Amex, and feeling quite optimistic. But I did. I felt much better, and if we can be much better in that midfield is the key for us. We're okay in both boxes, really. Generally, I know that last goal says otherwise, but generally, it's the midfield that's been the problem. So that looked like it was sorted. The last thing I'll say, and the very last thing on this, is that I have to say, and from what I've watched, the highlights of all games so far in the Prem, the VAR seems a lot faster, which used to get on my nerves, how long they used to take. But it seems to be a lot quicker and slicker this year, so fair play to the officials, and I thought the ref had a very good game in general. Yeah.
Well, just one final thing, picking up on United, I think, as you said there, so a load of people were already pressing the panic button and almost writing off our season already. But I think with what we said there, we saw a pattern of play and a style of play. And, the likes of Ugarte are coming in. A Kante type ball-winning midfielder. So if he can hit the ground running straight away, I think we could be in for a positive season, because it's a case of patience and waiting for the dots to connect. A bit like Chelsea, really, which could be a good segue.
Yeah, and just to say finally on that, Ben, you're very right, because last year I didn't know where the dots were going. Last year the dots were sometimes here, sometimes there, sometimes here. And the most frustrating thing about any football team in any division, and any type of football is when, as a fan, you can't see a style of play. As a fan, you go, what have they been working on all week? Because I can't see what they've been working on all week. Did they just do nothing? Did they just do the same drills? But for the first time on Saturday, in a long time, for the first time in over 12 months, barring the City game, I saw a style. And although it's not, amazing or revolutionary, it's a start. It's a start. And people will say, well, where was that last season? And the answer is, I don't know. And Ten Hag's a lucky man, but it's a start. It gives us something, a base to work off on. And, that's it.
One thing I will say about Ten Hag, just very quickly before we move on, is that I've always backed him and will continue to do so until the very end. But one thing I will say is he's very much been backed this season, so he's got nowhere to hide now.
Yeah, and he's got. I know it'll take a while because it's like this is going to be a weird analogy, but you know when you move house and a house has a certain smell about it, maybe,
Yeah.
and it takes a while for that smell to go. You might do some cleaning and the smell's still there. Well, even though we've got these new people in charge of the football operations and new hierarchy, the smell of what's gone on before, if you like, will still be there for a while. But
Yes.
having said that, he's been backed, so he has to do better. And I don't think it's a lot to ask to do better, to be honest, because we finished 8th last season.
Yeah, exactly.
So top 5. If we get top 6, but play much better, then for me this season that's progress. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, we've yapped on a lot about United there, so we can bring in George to segue into another game. So the next game we're going to talk about is Wolves v Chelsea. Now, obviously, it was a crazy scoreline. Chelsea beating Wolves by 6 goals to 2. Wolves actually started the better of the two teams, cutting Chelsea open on a few occasions, but 99 seconds into the game, Chelsea got a corner and flicked off the head of a Wolves defender, and Nicholas Jackson reacted the quickest to nod home, putting Chelsea into a 1-0 lead. Now, off camera, I actually spoke to Jord a bit about this, and we were saying that obviously, attacking wise, they were very good, scintillating at times. Defensively, they were still a bit suspect, but if they can continue to play like that, they'll obviously be a very interesting watch.
They won't need to play like that.
Yes, no, that is the next thing I was going to say. Me personally, and obviously you agree, Sam, I don't think they will continue to play like that. I think they're like a bag of rebels. You don't know what you're going to get. Obviously, the big squad size, keeping everyone happy, I think that will be an issue, but obviously Chelsea fans will be more encouraged. A hat-trick for Madueke.
I like him.
Yeah, he's very exciting, isn't he?
Yeah,
That Wolverhampton was all right in the end.
Yes, you're right, George. Obviously, the pantomime villain. Um, even uh, uh, even in his interview after the game, he was still laughing. But why is there not a reason to laugh? Because he's just scored a hat trick and his team won the game. So yeah, positives for Chelsea. But as we said, baby steps.
So, can I go next, and I'll let Jordan have a big block
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
so
I did that with you guys. So yeah, you go ahead and do that.
Chelsea's his team. For me, I touched on it a bit in the first week we did it, and all these stories around Chelsea were developing. Shalabah being frozen out, then Sterling happened just after we did our first show. And I'd just like to say, although Sterling maybe shouldn't have put the statement out, and I know the lads have been through it all already, but I'll just have my little take on it. For me, to ostracize players from the first team squad and to go to the extent of their numbers being taken away when they're still part of that club is shameful, shows a lack of class, is disgusting, and yeah, it just angered me a lot. But we've gone over that, so I just wanted my little bit on that. For me, the result was surprising in terms of the scoreline. I thought Chelsea would probably win. Gary O'Neill's a very good manager, but Wolves haven't really invested. They've lost Pedro Neto. Last summer, they lost Neves. They've lost, Matinho's gone in the last few years. So I actually worry for Wolves a little bit. I think they're lacking quite a bit of quality. But they've lost Kilman this season. So yeah, I do worry about Wolves. Even though I think Gary O'Neill will get every inch out of that squad. That he can. I think they will just survive, but I think they're in for a tough season. As for Chelsea, I'm very pleased for Madueke because again I spoke to George off air in the week, and yes, and we did say that Madueke was a strange one because they're on about him leaving as well. And we both said,
Oh yeah, sorry, I completely forgot we had that conversation. That was last week before any of this, wasn't it?
yeah, we're
That's
like,
crazy.
oh, we really like him. I think he's raw, but there's a lot of Chelsea players that no, that's harsh. There's a lot of Chelsea players that I don't think are ready to be Chelsea players. But as for Madueke, I really like him. I think he's raw, but he's unpredictable, and I think he's got a great future. But for me, Chelsea, I still think they might finish somewhere between 10th and 15th. I think the balance is wrong. I think the manager, I don't like him. I think he's a yes man. I think he reminds me a bit of Rafa Benitez, as in he has no player management skills. But he's not as good as Rafa in terms of tactically. And I think they'll struggle. I don't think they'll go down, although I did cheekily have a little bet with my dad that they'd go down. But I predict 10 to 15 for Chelsea, I really do.
Chelsea won't go down. I think that's very unlikely.
One thing that I will say, I agree that Enzo Maresca has shown absolutely zero man management skills. I after everything we've seen about Chelsea and the way they do things, I don't believe that he's a yes man, because I don't feel like Todd Bowley, given the way that Todd Bowley has been in terms of just basically seeming to buy everybody, I don't believe that he would have felt that the way that Maresca has dealt with things is the right way. That being said, as another point that I heard in a podcast today, it is true that they are putting all their eggs in one basket with Maresca, because I've heard that Chelsea's sister club, Strasbourg, with Liam Rosenior as manager, are being told and set up, and players are being signed to all play the Maresca way. So clearly,
I didn't know Strasbourg were a sister club, but there you go.
Yeah, I didn't
Clearly-
know actually either.
clearly they like what they're seeing from him, and I completely get it from what we saw. But you know, it's one game, and
It's against Wolves.
and Wolves were haphazard at the back. I think Kilman is a bigger loss than Neto. I think Kilman is a bigger loss than Neves. I think,
Yeah.
and I also think that, like, for me, like, obviously we're all football fans, and I'm a football fan, and I know quite a lot about football, but I didn't watch Wolves very much last season. So, like, for me, watching West Ham and seeing Max Kilman doing what Max Kilman does for West Ham, which we'll get on to, like it a lot.
Just one thing I forgot to mention about Chelsea, and it kind of jogged my memory when you said about Maresca and all their eggs in the basket for him. He came out in an interview and he said Chelsea haven't put any expectations on him in terms of to get top 4 in his first season. Now, obviously, if things go drastically wrong and results don't go their way, he will get the bullet. We've seen that. But if it's a steady sort of season, then they will stick with him. I do believe the chaos will slowly end if they stick with Maresca, because like George said, they're putting all their eggs into his basket. So
Certainly doing that, and
to just finish off what I wanted to say.
Sorry, go on.
You know, it's just one game again. I'll stand by what I said last week and say that Chelsea were not bad at all against City, but you know, it was fluid. It was very fluid, and fluid football is something that Chelsea needs. I completely agree with Sam that so many of those Chelsea players out there are not ready to be Chelsea players at the level that we know. The old school Chelsea, the Mourinho Chelsea, the Ancelotti Chelsea, the Mourinho Chelsea again, the Conte Chelsea, even the bloody Tuchel Chelsea. But that was the point. That was, I believe that was the original point when they came in and they made all those signings. It's just the problem with it is that people have kind of forgot that fact now, and those players are 2-3 years down the line, and to start to do things now that we should have seen or you know, we may have expected to have seen from them a couple of years ago. You know, people aren't sold. I think that Europa League has to be the aim. I don't think that team is ready for a Champions League push. That being said, I still think there's a number 9 on the way, another one. Although Nicholas Jackson did very well, again, only against Wolves. So I think there's a lot of positives. I think there are still a lot of negatives. I think that deadline day will be very, very interesting, and I that's it really. I don't really know what else to say. What I will say though about Wolves, I don't think they'll go down. I think it'll be difficult, but I really, really believe in Gary O'Neill, and so do Wolves. I think they were worried about him potentially going to England, and that's why he got that new deal, which I completely understand because I think he is a top level coach.
I agree.
So they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah, just
Go on, Ben.
picking on, I know you said before you didn't really watch Wolves, George. Last season they obviously had that run where they were pushing for the Europa places, the UEFA Conference, and it looked a real possibility. But then they obviously tailed off towards the end of the season. So if they can sustain a run, like you just said, I like Gary O'Neill as well. I believe his tactical work is very good. He's very in depth. So I feel like if they can sustain most of their squad, I know they've lost key players, but they've still got key players. There's no reason why they can't be pushing for UEFA Conference again, at least. Because when they're on it, they are a very good footballing team. And I know one thing I wanted to pick up on, I don't know if anyone else wants to before I say anything else.
No.
No, nothing from me.
I know this might seem a bit mismatchy, but what I wanted to pick up on was the Bournemouth and Newcastle game, because obviously, Sam, you said before, VAR's been a lot smoother so far, and in the main it has, but that game was very interesting in terms of VAR, because obviously, I don't know if you watched the game, but Joe Linton, very lucky not to receive a red, in my opinion. He clotheslined Neto. I don't know what your thoughts were, if you saw it.
Yeah, no, saw it. Saw it, definitely.
So the next game I wanted to highlight was Bournemouth v Newcastle. Obviously, Bournemouth racing into the lead. Antoine Semenyo, who had a great game, setting up Marcus Tavernier. Then Newcastle equalised, but the scoreline isn't what's going to get the headlines. Now, what's going to get the headlines is VAR. Sam said earlier it's been smooth, swift, slick, whatever you want to say. Now, on the main, it has, but that game, I thought there were certain decisions where VAR had a howler. Now, there were two contentious decisions. Probably the less contentious decision was Bournemouth's offside goal that was ruled out. Dengo Utara for an alleged handball. It was probably the right decision, but it was harsh nevertheless. Now, the other one was Joe Linton. He was very lucky to escape a red, in my opinion. He basically clotheslined Bournemouth keeper Neto, and with the Bournemouth staff protesting, I think it was Tommy Elphick, former captain. got received his marching orders. Now, I don't know what you think, George, but I think there was some horrible decision.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Utara one is quite harsh. And I also agree about Joe Linton. You know, I don't know. I want to point out in the main, like you said, in the main, VAR has been a lot better. But there have been specific games where there's been decisions made by the VAR, and you think, oh my God, or decisions made by the on-field referee. You know, we talked about the Eze controversy, or the one where if it wasn't for VAR, the ref would have given a penalty in the Everton game when actually it was Calvert-Lewin who stamped on the defender's foot, not a foul on Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah.
So I think that although I would say that the VAR has improved, I think that in that game it kind of showed it reared its ugly head in terms of harsher decisions. That being said, again, I want to say that all these conversations stop if we can hear the conversation between the referees. I hate the fact that pundits can hear it and we can't.
Yes.
I don't necessarily want to focus exactly on the decisions because you've done a pretty good job of summing them up and what occurred in the instances. But I do want to say that I think a lot more. There's still a long way to go with VAR, but I have always been of the mindset that we need it.
Yes.
In terms of the game itself, again, like I touched on it before, specifically last season. I've kept up with all the games, but I didn't watch particularly very many. Obviously, this year with this show, I've watched and all football that's been put in front of me, no matter what league, no matter what day. I hadn't actually seen Bournemouth play under Areola until Sunday, and I was extremely impressed.
Yeah, I said in my Premier League preview, and I still stand by it, that Areola is Bournemouth's most valuable asset. You know, most people would have said Solanke, but for me, it's Areola.
Yeah. I think as well. You talk about Solanke. I think Ivan Nielsen actually had a pretty decent debut.
Yes.
And should he, when he kind of gets into the league, I think he will catch fire. Yeah, like you said, Semenyo, fantastic. Always liked him. Was a very keen follower of him at Bristol City when he was there. But then like last week, because we didn't really touch much on the draw between Forest and Bournemouth. Bournemouth were denied a goal by VAR the week before as well.
Yes, they were.
Although it was the correct decision that time. So I think a kind of a false start for Bournemouth because the performances do not reflect the points they picked up. I think obviously Nick Pope made a good few saves, as did Neto.
Yes.
And yeah, Bournemouth and Newcastle should both have good seasons this season. Like I said, I just didn't really want to focus too much on the incidents because that's kind of what you'd already done. So ready to move on, or you've got anything else to say?
No, I haven't, and I know you wanted to talk about Aston Villa and Arsenal, so be my guest.
Yeah, so we're kind of jumping around a little bit, as we have done. So let me just touch on some other things that we wanted to touch on, but not say too much about.
So I just want to say it was Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 0.
Yeah, it was Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 0. Goals from
Thomas Partey.
Go on, Will. What's the other one?
And Thomas Partey and forgive me, it's gone. Can you?
Leandro Trossard.
Leandro
Goals from
Trossard. That's
Trossard.
right. Thank you.
Goals from Trossard and Partey. So yeah, forget what I just said because Will wants to talk about the late game anyway. So obviously the late game was an interesting test for Arsenal. Is this the moment? We saw them struggle.
Bit of a bogey team for Arsenal in the past.
Against Villa twice last season, and that's probably what cost them the title, really. Do well this time. Was this the moment? I actually thought Villa would take the game to them. I kind of thought Villa would win. I felt like, although it was two teams cancelling each other out last week, Villa would step up to the plate. They had the chances. The biggest one of those, of course, Watkins miss, which was terrible.
Oh, he should have scored that, shouldn't he?
Yes, he should have.
Absolutely should have scored that.
And then you had like an unbelievable save from David Raya, which for me changes the game. The game changes completely there. The Trossard substitution made just does the business, doesn't he? Off the bench every time. It's quite magnificent.
I tell you what, his goal, his strike, he took it cool as you like, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say before I let George carry on. Trossard, he's not a flashy player, so he maybe doesn't get his flowers as much as he should do, but every time he's called upon, he delivers. He digs Arsenal out of situations.
Yeah. And that's what you need, don't you? Often a player who can come off the bench and make that impact.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it is the definition of an impact player as well.
Yes.
I think for him, I do want to talk about as well. Obviously, Thomas Partey's goal, fed into him by Saka. Great strike, edge of the area, pushed into the goal really by Emi Martinez. He'll be disappointed by that. Arsenal win the game, and it's a big statement. And me and Ben talked about it, and it's a good way to segue into the two other results concerning what I'm going to call the top three: Liverpool and City. We'll start with City. They went a goal down to Ipswich, forward back in absolutely. I want to say unbelievable fashion, but it's City.
In fact, sorry to interrupt, but a player that you were talking about, I remember, was Sami Šimečka and
Sami Šimečka.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Sami Šimečka, and yeah, the big man delivered.
Yeah, he did, and it's obviously a great start. I feel the goalkeeper. Edison, but when you've got that team, any of those make a mistake. When you've got that team, but we'll just talk about it. Just to put it into perspective. Szmodics on the 7th minute, assisted by Ben Johnson. Then Haaland with a 12th minute penalty. De Bruyne in the 14th minute, assisted by Savinho, who once again was fantastic. And
sorry, is Ben Johnson the former West Ham United player? Is it that Ben Johnson?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. Then Haaland's second goal, assisted by De Bruyne, and then the hat trick comes on the 88th minute from Haaland.
Just the Erling Haaland show.
Just adding my little bit to that game, although Ipswich were in dreamland once they took the lead. As crazy as this is to say, they scored too early, and I think when you do that, it inevitably wakes up the juggernauts which is Manchester City, and that's what happened.
So hang on, scoring too early. So what? Why?
It's the thing of like,
surely you want to score any time you can, though.
no, it's the thing of like the horse has bolted too early.
Yes.
I completely see what Ben is saying. To score in the 7th minute at the Etihad, you're a newly promoted team. It's Sammy Smodic's first goal. It's a bit of a howler from Edison. I think you can tell that the Ipswich players haven't quite calmed down from that, because obviously the Haaland, was it the, I don't know which one I'm thinking of, where Arno Muric came out. And
that was De Bruyne's goal, I think.
Oh yeah, okay. Assisted by Savinho, yeah. So that's what I mean. I think that, some teams, I've seen it before. We see it in any league, in any scenario, but Man City are a great example of sometimes they don't get into gear very quickly, but then if the team takes advantage against them, it turns them on straight away.
Yeah.
City, we talked about it last week. We said that City are the masters of creating their own tempo and etc. and so forth, and this is exactly what we're on about. So I don't really want to kind of go over it too much, but like Haaland, 94 goals in 101 Premier League games.
That's pretty extraordinary.
It's like nothing we've ever seen before in this generation as a number 9. Which again, I said the exact same thing last week, so I don't really want to go over it too much. City are just incredible. And we talked a little bit about Gundogan. I don't know whether it was on air or off air. I can't quite remember. Last week, and he got a great reception, and I love to see it. And that was it. The other one of obviously the other one of this top 3, as I'm going to call it, that played was obviously Liverpool. They played Brentford. Kind of expected a trickier game for them. I won't lie. I thought they might struggle. They played on the Sunday. So, again, we're jumping around a little bit. That's what we're doing today. It started off early doors. One of the slickest counter-attacks that you will see, finished off via Luis Diaz. Absolutely hammering the ball past Mark Blackburn on the break, assisted by Diogo Jota. And then Luis Diaz finding Mohamed Salah, who does what Mohamed does. How good was that first goal, boys? How good?
Yes,
it's good.
Yeah, I thought, and I said this in my post earlier, I said, I thought it was Klopp-esque. Now, obviously, Slot has come in and implemented his own style, which the players seem to be buying into. But that counter attack was scintillating. It was Klopp-esque, and obviously Liverpool maintain their unbeaten start. And it sets them up nicely going into a mouth-watering tie at Old Trafford next week, which obviously I hope we win.
Yeah, I think that that's the scenario where we know where this Liverpool team are.
Let me ask you a question: Is a key for Liverpool keeping Diogo Jota fit?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that, Will, because I was going to touch on him. And
great minds think alike.
Yes, you're right. Obviously, Salah gets all the plaudits, and rightly so. But Jota, his importance goes unnoticed sometimes, I think, because you know, in certain teams you have clutch players who come up with clutch moments, you know, when a team needs a goal, that you think of a certain man. And for Liverpool, more often than not, that has been Jota. So I think he's vitally important for Liverpool. And I know it's early in the season, but he started 2 from 2. So I would suspect that Slot thinks the same.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can add to that on Jota is I think you look at Liverpool's attacking options, irregardless of Salah, because Salah is just Salah. I think he is the most complete. I think he is the most complete of the rest of their attacking options.
I'd agree.
There are obvious weaknesses in the play of Diaz, of Nunez, of Gakpo.
And obviously, sorry, John, I was just going to say, obviously, they're adding Chiesa to that.
Fabio Carvalho as well from Brentford.
Well, he's gone. He's gone to Brentford. So just picking up on Liverpool's attacking options, we spoke about a few names there, and what I want to mention is Chiesa. He looks like he's coming in from Juventus at a very shrewd price of, I think, 12.5 million. And obviously he's a player who's very direct, very quick, and I think he'll be a good addition for Liverpool. Obviously, they've got a lot of numbers in attacking areas, so it will only add to the healthy competition.
Yeah, absolutely. As we said, and as I said, by referring them to the top 3, I think any points dropped by any of these sides, even at this stage of the season, is crucial. So, games that are coming up, specifically United, Liverpool, very, very interesting, because I do think that no matter how
with so much history, so
yeah, I also think that no matter how poor United play, they do always turn up for Liverpool. Which is very interesting indeed, because we've seen City and Arsenal have set the bar for Liverpool, and they've got to keep that going. They really have.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's carry on with the rest of the roundup. And it's a good job we talked about Max Kilman, because he was heavily involved in a goal in this game, which was at Selhurst Park. Crystal Palace at home, and beaten by West Ham by 2 goals to 0. It was one from Souček and one from Bowen. The Bowen goal assisted by said man, Max Kilman. One thing that I do want to point out about this one, not too much to say on it, to be honest. Bowen's goal very good, because he's a great midfield player that does a lot of kind of unsung business. So for West Ham, so I like the opportunity to highlight him. The goal was scored. I think it was Bowen's goal. Or it was Souček's goal. And the go over to the fans.
Yes, that was Souček's.
Poor boy was getting crushed by some of the fans who had knocked over one of the advertising hoardings. And between Souček and Bowen, they kind of helped the little lad out.
Oh, absolutely, class.
I just want to highlight that, because I really like that.
There's
not a lot to it. Any player would have done it, I'm sure. It's worth highlighting because it's great. So yeah, West Ham, standing on business, getting it done again. I don't think Palace were dreadful again, because the obviously I don't really feel like they deserve to lose to Brentford last week. But football is a game of kind of momentum, and like we said again, as we said last week, we keep kind of coming back to the things that we said last week, and you can take them, and West Ham did that really well.
Is there enough signs that you think Palace are going in the right direction? Obviously, the first full season under Oliver Glasner.
Yeah, look, I don't know about Ben, but I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Palace will be fine. Obviously, they've lost a key player in Elise. They could lose Gahey and they could lose Eze, but I think they'll be fine. I think Glasner is a astute coach. He's brought a clear style of playing. And one thing we talked about last week, and it's the same for every week in football. Football is a game of fine margins. And, in the first half, Palace probably had the better of the play. Eze had a shot which thundered off the bar, and if that goes in, it could be a different game, who knows? So it's fine margins. But one thing I do want to highlight is I just said about Gahey potentially going. One person that has gone, who I think got overlooked, is Joachim Andersen. He's a very good player in my opinion.
Completely agree.
Gone back to Fulham.
Not for a lot of money either, considering how good Anderson is as well. I just want to say, yeah, we'll see what Palace do. Personally, I don't think they're going to lose Gahey. I think that giving him the captaincy might have swayed him. I think losing Anderson does a lot to kind of force Gahey's arm as well, because I don't know. There's a few things there. I'm just looking, and sorry to interrupt and just bring you a breaking story that we talked about earlier on, and I'll just quickly touch on it. But Enzo Maresca has basically said if Sterling stays at Chelsea this season, he will not play.
He'll definitely be out the door then.
Yeah, which is not great, so he'll probably go.
Who will be out the door? Sorry, pardon?
Sterling.
Oh, Sterling, right, okay.
So we'll talk about that one when we come back for the transfer show, yes. Which is on Friday night. Of course,
just one more thing on Palace. One thing that jogged my memory was the sale of Anderson. They've allegedly agreed to deal for Wolfsburg centre-back and Frenchman Maxime Lacroix. So whether he's at Anderson replacement or not remains to be seen, but shrewd bit of business, I think.
Yeah, not a bad one. A quick centre half, which I think is important.
Carry on though, Joe.
Because we've seen guys like Van der Ven be very successful, and he is an extremely quick centre half.
He is a Rolls Royce.
Yeah. One main thing I want to highlight for my next game, which is Fulham 2, Leicester 1, at the Cottage. Opening goal from Emmy Smith-Rowe, which we love to see because he's a great player. Cancelled out by
kicking on, doesn't he? Is Fulham, do you think, the right place for him that he can settle?
Yeah, yes, I do. I do think.
Wout Fass before the winner from Alex Iwobi, who again is another player who's really kicked on since he's joined Fulham.
Two Arsenal old boys.
Yeah. Now the main thing I wanted to highlight was obviously Smith-Rowe. Took his goal well. Just glad to see it. Just glad to see him getting regular minutes. Always a player I really liked, and obviously Arteta had spoken openly about being very upset to see him go. Fulham an interesting team. Another one made a lot of great business. As we said, re-signed Anderson, who was there, but has kicked on, becoming an even better defender. So it's a great signing. That team on the whole is fantastic. The Fulham team is a great blend for the level of team that they are. Leicester obviously weren't at it. Were beaten by the better side, and that not too much. Again, not too much to say. I don't know about you, Ben.
Yeah, well, I think you've summed it up. Really, to be fair, one thing I will say is that Fulham, I think, with the addition of Smith Rowe, I think, obviously, as we know, that's a really, really good sign, and potentially they could kick on. But there's a lot of clubs of that ilk, a Fulham, Wolves, West Ham that could really fight for at least the Europa League. So it's gonna be an interesting season this year because a lot of teams have strengthened. So.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think that we will see what happens with that. Completely agree. 2 more to go before we're done with the Premier League. I'm going to start with one that I don't necessarily want to talk too much about, and that is, just bear with me for 1 second. That is, Southampton 0, Nottingham Forest 1. The goal scored by Morgan Gibbs-White. Sloppy defensively from Southampton. They failed to clear, and the second ball goes into the area, and they've conceded there from Morgan Gibbs-White, which is a shame. Again, I think they weren't that bad at all. Again, I think Forest played well and are unbeaten, and I tipped them to finish in the bottom 3 in my kind of private predictions, and I feel like that might be a bad shout because they've not done too bad at all.
Yeah, I predicted them to finish 17th, I think. But in terms of Southampton, I just wanted to touch on Southampton. As you said, they weren't that bad. And I know it's only 2 games into the season, and they are winless. And football's a results business at the end of the day. But in terms of the 3 promoted teams, I'd say so far, Southampton have surprised me the most because in terms of Leicester, I knew they had it in them to compete. We saw that when they drew with Spurs, but Southampton are kind of wrote off immediately, and it still could be right to do that because it is only 2 games in, as we've said, but they've played some good stuff, and if they converted their chances, particularly against Newcastle, they could have come away with a win. So positive signs for Southampton, I think.
Yeah, they've got an incredibly solid forward line as well for the sort of lower mid-table Premier League teams. Aaron Ramsdale on his way again.
Yeah, that's going to be a quality signing.
£25 million deal, £17 million fee with £8 million add-ons. Like that very much.
Me too.
So again, we'll see with them. I think there's more to come. Definitely more to come. And to finish off, and I don't know why we ended with this one because it was a good game. Tottenham beating Everton 4-0 at the new White Hart Lane. What it's called, right? Oh no, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yeah.
I thought it was just called the new White Hart Lane. There you go. started off by somebody who, once again, as with Madueke, had been in the news quite a little. As with Madueke earlier on, had been in the news quite a little bit. Yves Bissouma with an absolute cracker for his first ever goal for Tottenham. 2 goals from Sonny, sandwiched in between Christian Romero. Header. Tottenham, very good. Everton, dreadful. Obviously, Jordan
Concerning
Pickford makes
times for Everton, do you think?
Well, it's funny you say that because I predicted Everton to have a much better season. You know, they've recruited well, but so far on the 2 games showing.
Well, I mean, losing 5-0 and then losing 4-0, so.
Yeah, so far on the 2 games that they've played, in the league, that is, because obviously they were in the cup last night. I don't see it being any different for Everton. Obviously, architects of their own downfall on Saturday with Pickford gifting a few chances, and then
terrible.
Yeah, it was. And Pickford has always got a mistake in him. But I thought Everton would be galvanised this season, because obviously it's their final season. Sorry, at Goodison Park, but so far, same old Everton.
Yeah, it's not worked. It's not worked so far. They've talked about, or Sean Dyche has talked about no money, like that. I don't know, just terrible. There's not a lot more you can say about it other than terrible.
Not happy times on the blue half of Merseyside.
No, definitely not. Do I think they are in serious trouble? Honestly, no, I actually don't. But it is a horrific start. I think I trust Dyche, Sean Dyche, obviously, and that goes a long way because we know that he is a specialist with these kind of teams. Anything else to add on the Premier League at all before we go into the EFL?
No,
not from me, but from you, Will. Oh no.
No, I don't think so. I think we must have covered everything.
No, yeah, I would say we most of the key points.
Yeah.
So let's go into the EFL.
And here with the EFL results is Jordan Ertham.
Okay, yes, we'll start with the Championship, and we will start with Friday night's action. Yorkshire Derby, Sheffield Wednesday versus Leeds at Hillsborough. A 2-0 win for Leeds, thanks to goals from Brandon Aronson and Dan James, both assisted by the fantastic on the night Mateo Joseph. Leeds up and running in the league. Much better than what them, but not quite the vintage that we were used to throughout most of last season. For Danny Roll, another disappointing loss. Another game where they were completely outplayed, and back to the drawing board for them. Now then, on to Saturday's action. Going to start with a few draws, I'm afraid. Bristol City 1, Coventry 1. The spoils shared at Aston Gate. A absolute thunderous volley from George Tanner on the stroke of half-time. Cancelled out from Casey Palmer on the 76th minute. 0-0 between Hull and Millwall. That heart attack football I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Not looking so great so far. Goal of the day, perhaps, in a draw between QPR and Plymouth. Michael Frey opening the scoring for the Hoops on the 3rd minute before what I thought was quite funny with a cheeky little inadvertent 1-2 between the QPR defender and star boy Morgan Whittaker. for an absolutely thunderous long shot. Morgan Whittaker is as good as Morgan Whittaker is and wanted by almost everybody in the Championship and the kind of lower to mid Premier League. That was followed, though, by 2 disappointing moments for Wayne Rooney. 2 yellow cards.
Sorry, just to interrupt. So that's 1 defeat and 2 draws for Plymouth?
Yeah, that's right. So 2 disappointing moments. Adam Forshaw with 2 yellow cards. And then, which is a little bit silly, literally 1 minute after the Whittaker equaliser, and then Freddie Osaka, the youngster, with a high boot in the 91st minute, meaning Plymouth were down to 9 men. Not ideal at all. Good start continues, or promising start, to be fair, let's not say good. Still early. Promising start continues for Blackburn Rovers. Again, continuing the theme of these thunderous strikes, we'll go again for the 3rd time. This time, a absolutely whirlwind volley from Mark Harris to open the scoring before Joe Rankin Costello equalised 3 minutes later, and Arno Sigurdsson scored the winner 7 minutes from time for 2-1. There was another draw, and this time it was a comeback draw for Middlesbrough. They were 2-1 down until the 90th minute when Tommy Conway, the new signing, scored the penalty. It was 2 from Christian Sadie for Portsmouth on the 2nd and the 25th minute, before an equaliser from ex-Portsmouth player Matt Clark on the 11th. Another draw as we continue. Norwich 1, Sheffield United 1. Clinical from Josh Sargent before being cancelled out by Ollie Arblaster. Not so much to say about those just yet. Preston new era on the bottom with a win against Luton Town. Starting very poorly in the Championship. Luton Town, they've just lost one of their star boys, Chidozie Ogbeni, to Luton. Will Keane with the goal for Preston, and a good start that they won in the Cup yesterday, which we haven't touched on the Cup at all, and we probably won't because we're not the biggest fans of the Carabao Cup. But it's worth noting that it's 2 from 2 for Paul Heckingbottom. Now, West Brom went away to Stoke at the Bet365 and won 2-1. The opening goal from Carlin Grant was cancelled out by the incredibly eye-catching Lewis Kumas, who hit the post twice and scored the equaliser before 2 minutes later Josh Madger returned 2 goals for to get what was his 4th in 3 games. The game of the week for me, there's 2 key games of the week, and the last 2 we're going to talk about. Sunderland v Burnley. We talked a lot about Burnley, talked about how great they've been. And I'm going to give you a Regis Labrie name pronunciation update. Every week, I pronounced it differently, I think. On ITV, the lady presenter pronounced it Regis Labrie, so that's how I'm going to be pronouncing it from now on. They've lost put the teeth back in. They've lost Jack Clark. He's gone his replacement is ready-made in Romain Mundle. A fantastic cut inside goal, reminiscent of Clark, gave them the 1-0 lead. Daniel Burnley pretty toothless, to be honest. Don't know whether that is a sign on a fast start. Only been 3 on. And final one in the Championship. Watford. My prediction absolutely terrible. They came from behind thanks to an Edo Adams opener for Derby. Bakun Bio, who I slated as not very good in the predictions, and Musa Sissoko, who I said might not have it at this level, with the 2 goals for Watford, which doesn't look great for me. But again, as I said last week, I love it. I love that they're doing.
Don't get Jordan to give you fancy football tips.
No, Tom Cleverley absolutely deserves it, and it's just to see for a young manager. It really is. So let's leave that one there and head into League One. Stockport County continue their fantastic start. They're 3 from 3, and so is their main man, striker Louis Barry. He scored again, as did Kyle Wotton, as they beat Bristol Rovers. And let me tell you something, I don't know whether you've seen this on the AFL highlights or not, Will. Barry
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, well, you need to. Louis Barry only scores bangers, my friend. Let me tell you that. Next game, a 2-2 draw. Barnsley, 2-0 up, looking good. 70 minutes in, 2-0 up, as I said, thanks to goals from Max Waters and Adam Phillips. And John Brady's Northampton showed that spirit that we know they have. 2 goals, one a first professional goal from Liam McCarron, and another the equaliser from Jack Baldwin on 72 and 78 for a draw there. Now, last week, of Neil Critchley, Richard Keogh, the defender, is put in temporary charge, and he oversaw an absolute ding-dong affair. 4-4 the scoreline. Half-time. Let me take you through these goals. The opener from James Husband, who got a brace and also scored what was the 2-1 goal. Either side of that was a goal from Shane Lavery. Kyle Joseph scored in the 39th, and Don Ballard on loan from Southampton scored in the 53rd. So, pause there. 4-1 Blackpool. Then, Danny Andrew on the free kick. We know what he can do at this level from set plays. Free kick in the back of the net. No problem. Then, Brandon Njoku and Shane Lavery again to make it 4-4. An unbelievable game of football.
Wow.
And a very, very interesting start for Richard Keogh. Great spirit shown by Cambridge, which is probably what they need after a few interesting. So much. The Nathan Jones era for Charlton continues to be very, very good. Greg Doherty on the 10th and Matty Godden on the 88th saw them sweep aside Bolton Wanderers. Which is interesting because I feel like these are 2 teams that will be fighting for promotion. And I really kind of thought this would be a draw, if not a kind of an edgy Bolton win. But there you go, Nathan Jones proving that he's got this Charlton team up for the fight. Similarly, up for the fight, as we again talked about a little bit when we talked about Peterborough. Lots of squad churn, lots of players that have come in from non-league, things like that. They're doing very well. They came from behind. Reece Cole in the 4th minute, cancelled out by Malik Motherseal with a great finish in the 7th minute. And then Emmanuel Fernandez deflected by Joe Whitworth in the Exeter goal, flat-footed from 30 yards on the 45th. Very, very impressed by Peterborough and their continuing the way that they continue to churn and carry on and keep playing well and finishing well and doing what they do. A team that I'm sure I mentioned last week I was very worried about was Shrewsbury Town. They were beaten again. Callum Marshall continuing his great start for life in Huddersfield. They won 1-0. They look great under Michael Duff. Keep an eye on that one. Birmingham. But then they started to, last week they won their first win of the league season. At it again. Keshi Anderson given a gift from the Leyton Orient goalkeeper Hemming. Ethan Galbraith equalising before Alfie May made it 3 from 3 to get the winner for 2-1. Town absolutely put Mansfield to the sword. 2 from Adam Jackson, 1 from Sean Rowan, and 1 from Ben House before a consolation by Adeji Osalaja.
What was the score then?
Start from by Wigan thanks to a Joy McKenna own goal. Minute. Wrexham can an incredibly strong start to life in League One by aside Reading 3-0 thanks to goals from Ollie Palmer, Elliot Lee, and Andy Cannon. And off in League One. Really, for me, one of the shock stories so far. Rotherham not doing so great under Steve Evans. Really didn't see it coming. Really have dominated whenever they've been at this level. Past 5, 6, 7 years. They were beaten thanks to goals from Ipswich loanee Cameron Humphreys and a penalty on the 87th from Kieran Sadlier. Now, into League 2, almost there, I promise. On TV on Thursday night, that's right, we're going that far back, was a game between Notts County and Grimsby. I watched this game. Obviously, it was the only thing on Thursday. Couldn't watch the Conference League playoff. Notts County were fantastic. They raced into a 3-0 lead half-time. Alessandro Jassa, Dan Crowley, and Jody Jones in the 6th, 15th, and 46th minute, respectively. On the 49th minute, or should I say the 4th minute of injury time in the first half, Harvey Rogers got a consolation for them before Dan Crowley scored another in the 57th. Now, scrolling all the way to the top and moving on to Saturday. And then scrolling down to find the League 2, starting with, we've picked up our first points of the season. It's only the 1 point. Swindon created a bad chance to a very poor again, I feel. Very much kind of hoof ball, as I like to call it. Long balls up the field to no one. Not great. One thing that I do want to mention is right before the end of the game, Chris Long, our striker, had a great chance. Fantastic when he came on to just shoot it wide. Not an ideal start for Crew, but we'll see what happens next week. Shock that happened was that Walsall went to Tranmere unbeaten, started fantastically. I think I highlighted them last week. Which was saved by the goalkeeper. And from there, Amari Patrick scored for Tranmere, and that was all she wrote. Tranmere getting their first win of the season. Tranmere have not won a game. As of Saturday, God's sake, you can tell I've been talking. Good result for them. Always like them. Adkins. So we'll see what the season brings for them. Barrow, bringing a bit of joy into my life. They absolutely battered Port Vale 4-0. Jed Garner, 54. Emil Ackwitz, 77. Kean Spence, 81.
You'd be popping the champagne then, wouldn't you?
95 for 4-0. fantastic. And the Stephen Clements era has been going pretty well for them so far. Also been going not too bad for Bradford City. They were at home to Bromley, who lost the defender Charles on 8 minutes, with Richie Small converting the penalty before goals from Andy Cook and Bobby Poynton, who I like a lot, by the way, good young player. Put the gloss on things for a consolation from Bromley, thanks to the veteran defender Byron Webster. Michael Flynn's Cheltenham hosted Wimbledon. They got the away win thanks to Joe Piggott on 67 minutes. Chesterfield couldn't carry on their fantastic form from the 5-0 win over Crewe. They were held by Salford 1-1 thanks to a goal from Kelly Namai on the 86th minute after going down to 10 men and conceding thanks to Chesterfield's James Berry. Harrogate performed a smash and grab in Essex. Absolutely dominated in terms of stats and shots until Sam Florarin found the back of the net for Harrogate Town. Good result for them. Doncaster continued to show their quality season. Harry Clifton with a goal for them, 1-0. Fleetwood and Gillingham, two sides very well matched. Mark Bonner's men have obviously been very heavily back this season, whereas Charlie Adams' men are, as I've heard, very well coached. Quite a lot of good young players. That was 0-0. MK Dons got their first win of the season. Callum Hendry, Alex Gilby and Ellis Harrison as they put Carlisle to the sword. And then the Nelson Jardine era continues with a 3-1 win for Newport over Accrington, thanks to a Seb Cook own goal, a Courtney Baker-Richardson, penalty, a strike from Aaron Wildig, the consolation, a decent goal from Sean Wally. But that is the end. It is not. I've missed the game. And I'll tell you why I missed that game. Because I watched it. It was a championship game. It's a very big game, actually. I'll finish with it because I missed it. Swansea versus Cardiff, the Wales Derby. And I opened the scoring for the Swans on 10 minutes. A good hustle from Cullen following up to score. And then Callum Robinson with a go, the equaliser, point shared. I always say here, not a lot to say about a draw. And just double check. No, that's the end. So do you want to bring us home?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jordan, for that. So, for more football discussion that we didn't get a chance to talk about on the show, well, head to Ben's Football Folio. The link will be in the description. And we will be back with a live show for the last hour of transfer deadline day. That's going to be very exciting, probably. Be interested to see what deals we'll go through. And of course, Jordan, you'll be there for that. And so will Sam, and so will Ben Connie. And thank you to Sam and Ben, who had to go. But thank you for your company, lads, because, some really good insights and analysis as always. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, no problem. Enjoyed it.
Every time. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
I'm just saying, enjoyed it as I do every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And if you want to, feel free to like, share, comment and subscribe to the TubeMix YouTube channel. And join us next time where we'll discuss all things football. And it'll be all without having kicked a ball. Goodbye.
Goodbye.